BBC Radio Bristol. Upload with Adam Crowther.
So that was Jamie Lowe with how he got his insulin pump. That's the second part of his vlog that we'll feature in this week. Here, part 3 tomorrow, with Lily May sitting in for me here on BBC Upload. But Jamie joins me in the studio now. Good evening, Jamie.
Good evening. What a cliffhanger. Does he get his insulin pump? Who knows?
Happens next? What happens next? But you do get your insulin pump.
Yes, I do.
Let's spoil it. Let's spoil it for everyone that's listening and waiting to hold that one on tomorrow. But you did, and in a way, this has been a bit of a life-changing thing for you, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, when I first got diagnosed in 2015, I became a bit of a scientist straight away. I sort of, read up as much as I could. I was a science experiment for myself, and it sort of consumed my whole life. And I think I got to a point where I was just like, you know what, this is taking up too much room in my head. I need a bit of help here. And luckily, I was able to go to my DSM, which is a diabetic specialist nurse, and she said this was an option, and it's not an option that everyone gets my age. With my late diagnosis, it's a little bit different. With kids, they throw the book at them. They get all the technology because imagine you're 7 years old and your pancreas doesn't work. You need as much help as you can. So not everyone gets the chance to have an insulin pump, but I did, and I'm feeling very lucky because it has improved a lot of areas of my life.
So before you had the pump, what would be your sort of routine? Because you'd have to sort of be measuring your blood, finger prick tests every day, all through the day, at different points and stuff like that. What would be your routine?
Well, I still have to do that now, but I think what the insulin pump has changed is that it takes a bit of the math away. So my routine beforehand would be wake up, test my blood sugar, decide what I'm going to eat for breakfast, do a bit of maths to work out how many carbohydrates in that, give myself an injection, and then it was up to me to get it right. Now it's up to a machine, which is probably a lot better at maths than me. So what it's done is, it's removed a bit of that human error. Because say if I give myself a bit too much insulin, or I don't take into account the fact that I'm going to be running around for the next couple of hours, I could have a hypo, which is when my blood sugar completely drops and I get all shaky and wobbly and I'm a bit dizzy and I don't know what's going on. And it's almost like a bit when you've had too much to drink. That's what a hypo feels like. So that's what you're trying to avoid, and that's what the insulin pump does. Also, what it does is sort of, with the insulin injections, you have an injection and that's it. With the insulin pump, I can remove it if I think I've had too much insulin, and it sort of gives me little bits throughout the day. So it's not like a huge payload, it's little bits. So hopefully it'll be a little more regulated.
Yeah, and for people that don't understand what hypo is and the sort of effect it can have, you do describe it quite like being a bit drunk in a way. But it can sort of come and hit you out of nowhere. And it can be quite dangerous if you're in the wrong place or doing the wrong thing. If you're driving, for instance.
Or on the radio.
Yeah, exactly. But I've got a couple of friends who are diabetic, and I've seen them have a hypo, and it's just the most surreal thing for anyone witnessing it. So goodness knows what it must be like, someone going through it themselves.
Well, I mean, it's not that dramatic. You get used to them, and you sort of know when they're coming on. But it is the ones, like you say, the ones that come when you least expect them, that you're like, oh, okay. Because dealing with this every day, it sort of becomes quite normalised, and then every now and again fate will throw you an absolute curveball and you'll think, oh, this is actually quite serious, and you have to sort of bring yourself back down to earth. Because I think I'm probably guilty of this. You sort of put it into the back of your mind that something could go wrong down the line. You're like, oh, I'm going to be fine, I can go for a run and I'm going to be fine, it's fine, don't worry about me, just let me get on with it. And then sometimes the worst does happen. But it's knowing what to do in those situations, and letting your friends know that makes it okay when it does happen.
Yeah, so they know what to do. Mm-hmm. What would be the case for someone that sort of comes across someone that's having a hypo?
Well, the question that when I first got diagnosed, the question that everyone asked me was, so do I get to inject you then if you have a funny turn? And it was like, no, because if you do that, you will kill me.
Yeah,
so
it will get even worse.
If you see a diabetic person, a type 1 diabetic person, go a little bit squiffy, then just reach for the sugar. The more sort of condensed glucose as you can get is the stuff to give them. Little bags of, those little bags of sweets. Yeah. They're always handy.
Yeah, little bags of sweets, chuck them a Mars bar, sugary tea.
That's it, sugary tea, anything.
And you'll be all right. So people will no doubt know and be familiar with an insulin pen, which is what you would have been injecting with previously. Mm-hmm. Sort of, you click a dosage around, and it literally clicks around like a pen would when you open a pen.
Yeah.
And quite often in the leg or in your abdomen or whatever. Whereas now, this insulin pump, it's tiny little pocket sort of. It looks almost like a key ring. How small it is.
It looks like a pager, from the 90s.
Like you still see on Casualty, but nowhere
I
else.
whip it out sometimes, and people are like, "Is that really your phone? Have you?" They think I'm some sort of like technology phobe.
Yeah.
But no, it does look like a little pager, and I sort of like that moment back when I was using the pens because I call myself unashamedly type 1 diabetic. I will give an injection wherever I am, and if it causes a conversation, then someone else knows about type 1 diabetes after that. But now, none of that happens because it's just in my pocket. I pull out a little, what looks like a phone from the early 2000s. I dial in a certain set of numbers, then it gives me the insulin, and that's it. It's very discreet.
Yeah, and it sort of sits in a port in.
Yeah, so it's called a cannula. So anyone that sort of if you've got a nurse in the family or a little bit about medicine, then you'll know what a cannula is. It's just like a little wiry type thing that sits just under your skin. And I put that in with a little machine. I was a bit scared of it to start with because it's like a stamp. Imagine stamping something sharp into you. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but eventually I got it down. But now I've started avoiding putting it near my stomach where there is body hair, because when it comes time to remove them, I learned that the hard way.
Yeah, so just finding somewhere.
Yeah,
no body
I stick
hair.
with the sides now. Stick with the sides.
Good choice. Good choice. If people want to find out a bit more about living with type 1 diabetes, then your YouTube channel is probably a good place to start.
It is, and there is lots of people from the UK making great content about life with type 1 diabetes. I've just started actually working with a charity called JDRF, who are the UK's only dedicated charity for people living with type 1 diabetes, who've got loads of information. And I would, suggest people do sort of read up a little bit about what to do in an emergency if you've got a loved one or a friend with type 1 diabetes, because you don't know. That information could be very valuable one day.
Yeah, and it's anyone that you come across, whether you could be sat on a bus next to someone or in the office next to someone, anything, and it's useful to know that, isn't it? So if people want to find out more about that charity,
jdrf.co.uk
nice
.org.uk, forgive me.
.org.uk. Just checked it. Yeah, it's right. But it's got loads of stuff on their website with all the sort of how-tos, what's and whys, and lots of stuff on your YouTube channel that explains what you go through when you're dealing with stuff.
A new video coming out soon is going to be all the times when I've made a mistake living with type 1 diabetes. The ripping off the body hair with the cannula is going to feature in that, so that'll be making its way soon. I actually tried to film it today, but I filmed it all out of focus, so the failures continue, but we'll get there one day.
So now you're going to have to put yourself through the pain of ripping out a cannula with loads of body hair.
Oh no, that's all filmed. That was definitely in focus, so we're all good there.
No need to go through that pain again. Jamie, thank you very much for sending in your vlogs. We've got some more on the way.
Yes, absolutely. We've got the Diabetic Fails video, and then this weekend I'm going to be heading to London to cheer on all the people running for JDRF in the London Marathon, so there'll be a video about that on the way too.
Brill, thank you very much. That is Jamie Lowe. He is a broadcaster and vlogger in Bristol, and as he says, find out more about that charity. All the links and stuff are all on Jamie's Twitter bio. Jamie Lowe TV is what you need to search to find all of that.
Upload with Adam Crowther, BBC Radio Bristol.
We have got music on the way from Coldplay and an absolute banger from Busted after this from Lewis Capaldi.